Welcome back to One Look at News, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic day, because right now, the dev server has come and gone, and we are going to talk about all the vehicles, well, all the ones that were in the dev server, and a few others that are coming in 2.3. So starting off with the United States, they only got aircraft. For their low-tier thing, they got a new naval bomber, the PBM-1, a large float plane with bomb bays in the engines, able to carry up to 4,000 pounds, unfortunately no naval mines, and had a defensive armament of 550 cals. One in the nose, one in the tail, two on the sides, and one on a dorsal turret. All of this coming at you at 2.0. With 550 cals, it could be a really effective plane. Overall, you could kind of consider it just a larger PBY. But this is not the first time we've seen the PBM. In fact, just about this time a year ago, 3 of them are dug up in a data mine. The PBM-1, PBM-3, and PBM-5, I believe it was. In fact, the PBM-3 is already in game as an event vehicle that happened almost about 2 years ago from now. It came out during a event in February trying to get people to get into the naval by offering a naval aircraft, but also a destroyer. Now with the addition of the PBM-1, all it relies on is the final variant that was dug up. It seemed a late or post-war version. I'm curious, they did say that they had some other things that did not show on the dev server streams that were to be coming. Is it quite possible we'll finally get the final variant of the PBM in-game? The second US aircraft is another example in how successful the military-industrial complex has been, the F-84F. A quick summary of this one is an F-84 with slanted wings, not nearly as much ordnance, and flies kind of like a fat saber. The same offensive armament of 6 M3 50 cals. The real impressive aspect of this aircraft is that just about everyone got one. So far this patch, as we go through this, you're going to hear the name F-84F quite a few times. But the final US aircraft is the most interesting one. That is, of course, the F-7D. For the most part, we've already talked about this one in a prior video where I was talking about its dev blog, but now we got to see it in action and how it performs, and there's a few disappointments. However, there's also a few differences since its initial release as a dev blog. Its battle rating is now 9.7, and it came right before the Harrier, so if you're grinding the Harrier out, you better hurry up. It has a ballistic computer and carry a boatload of bombs. Generally, it's going to be a good ground attacker. The interesting part comes with the gun pods, the GAU-13A cannons, or Gatling cannons, I think they are. Despite firing the same 30mm ammunition as the A-10, a well-known tank buster, its penetration was actually very low, even to some very conservative estimates on how much the A-10 could penetrate. The max it could do was 56mm, which was only a little more than the usual M61A1 20mm Gatling cannon it has. Makes me think that either it is a placeholder penetration value, or they have extremely intentionally nerfed it because they don't want it to destroy all the tanks on the ground. I'm hoping that it's just placeholder as of now. There's quite a few things that were questionable, and a lot of cockpits were missing, so it's obvious the dev server wasn't totally finished, a bit rushed. Hopefully the second one will have a more fulfilled experience. Regardless of the penetration though, you could definitely throw out a lot of lead, and you could actually take the 2 gun pods along with AIM-9Js, which could be really useful against many other jets, having plenty of ammunition to spray at them and some pretty effective air-to-air missiles. I'm curious to see how the end result is going to be. Are these placeholder penetration values? Is it a placeholder battle rating? And how well will it do in air combat, having good air-to-air missiles but not being able to go supersonic and not even having an afterburner? Germany also got 3 vehicles, starting off with an F-84F. I know, big surprise. Same loadout and ordnance as the US one, but much more interesting, and something they actually created themselves, was the SD-KFZ 152-21, a Second World War half-track with 3 15mm MG151s, the same 15mm gun on the Bf-109 F2, and also as same as the F2's gun, it carries the Cermet core round, which can penetrate up to 50mm. Now, unlike the F2, its armor-piercing belt only has it once every 4 shots. However, this doesn't matter, as because it has such a large magazine and such a fast fire rate, you're going to be able to penetrate something with 50mm quite easily. Now, this thing's coming currently, could change in the final release, at 3.3. There's quite a few vehicles that only have 50mm of armor at 3.3. I was even able to kill a T-34 from the front a few times. It took quite some effort, and it's much easier to kill them from the side. But also, these being 15mm have quite a lot of velocity, making them actually pretty good at shooting down planes, especially with the 50mm of penetration just goes straight through the aircraft, destroying everything it touches. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses for this vehicle. It has some major drawbacks, most notably, of course, being a half-track, it has no armor. But more importantly, it has no depression. According to the stat card, -3 degrees is the most, less than a T-34 76. And the worst part is the guns are pretty well elevated, which when shooting aircraft aircraft, it's not that big of a deal, but when going up against other tanks, especially T-34s, you might have to get quite some distance between you and the side of the vehicle to actually penetrate the lower side armor. But those will only be slight bumps in the road when murdering enemy tanks with this vehicle, as well as aircraft. Just try not to get hit though, you don't have any armor. The final German vehicle is actually a vessel, the Von der Tann, a 6.0 battleship from the First World War. Generally, I don't see the entire purpose for this. It's a nice looking ship, I like it, but Germany already had 2 other 6.0 ships. Other nations needed 6.0 ships, not Germany. But overall, again, it's a nice looking vessel. I don't have a whole lot to say about it because top tier naval is kind of strange. It's more of like just a constant slugfest, and all the battleships are kind of the same. They got a similar number of guns, they all have a lot of armor, and they take forever to kill. Russia got the short end of the stick this time for the most part, only receiving 1 frigate, the MPK Project 1241.2. Real creative name there. This is a top tier frigate, the end of the line for coastal fleets, armed with a 76, which has a very nice steady fire rate that can fire HE but also proximity fuse rounds. It has anti-air radar, but might not be needing that because it also has some really good anti-air turrets that the AI can make use of, or yourself if you're really into it. And man, it is really good at shooting down enemy planes, but also boats. The vessel can also carry rockets and torpedoes, or depth charges. Rockets and depth charges are more of a joke, kind of fun to mess around with. I don't know if you're going to hit much. The real interesting part was that in the back there was a dude standing with 4 iglas. However, it is stated that currently the iglas are not to be actually used, and that followed with them not actually having an X-ray model when he looked at the X-ray. Now, it's probably for the best, but it makes you wonder, are we going to see these in the future? The vessel's only 4.7, so it'd be only facing props, maybe the occasional turbo prop, but this wouldn't be super useful against prop planes, I think. But it also be kind of silly, like just blow up random 4 planes. The Sea-Wiz looking boy is going to do that for you anyways, though. Now let's get on to the British. Starting with their aircraft, they got the Blackburn Buccaneer S2 at the end of their jet bomber line. With the battle rating of 9.3, it carried no offensive guns, though it was able to carry air-to-air missiles, only AIM-9Bs, bullpups, and also a lot of bombs. Based on estimations of people in my chat, it could blow up 4 bases, or 3, and then damage the airfield pretty heavily. Which raised the question, is this going to be OP? Perhaps. However, I don't think it's going to be the worst in the world, because it's not the only bomber that can do that. In fact, the Italian 4-engine bomber, the P-108Bs, actually have enough bombs to bomb 3 bases and then damage the airfield. Now, you have like literally 1 bomb left for the airfield, but if you had 4 of you in a squadron, you could probably easily take out the enemy. Now, like the Buccaneer, the P-108B also is easily shot down. So I don't think it's going to necessarily be OP, because you can just shoot them. And it's 9.3, so you'll likely have air-to-air missiles. And if I recall correctly, this thing did not have any flares. So it can either try to dodge the AIM-9B and then fall victim to your guns, or die to the AIM-9B, or whatever greater missile you may be shooting at it. Of the things I call OP this patch, I think there's greater concerns out there. I forgot to mention this the first time I was making the audio for this video. There is another premium for the British, the Hornet Mark 1. And the reason why I forgot to talk about it is because it's not impressive. It is like the Hornet Mark 3 that's in the tech tree, but a premium. The armaments are the same, the performance also seem the same, there's no difference. But hey, if you love Hornets, you just gotta get it. Probably also gonna be a pretty good grinder. I don't even like the regular Hornet in the tech tree. There's other British heavy fighters I like that aren't the Hornet. And in fact, I don't even like British heavy fighters, but for some reason I ground out their whole line. The British are also getting the HMS Invincible, which is actually not invincible. It can indeed be sunk. This is a British 6.0 battle cruiser, which is very similar to the German 6.0 battle cruiser that they're getting in this patch. In fact, I believe they faced each other back in the First World War. Generally a pretty cool ship, but not a whole lot different than other things. I believe this one actually had SAP rounds, which actually for a battle cruiser could be pretty effective. The other ones only have HE and AP. If you're wondering what SAP rounds are, they're kind of like high explosive rounds, but they're full of sap from trees, and it gets all to the ship and it's really sticky, and the crew gets all annoyed. And they go wash their clothes, and the ship becomes no longer combat effective because they're too sticky. I think the Canadians invented them. The final British vehicle actually wasn't on the dev server, but it was talked about and saw in the official dev server stream the day prior, the Canadian ADATS M11-3. However, I don't think we really need to actually see what this thing looks like or even does in combat, because the name explains exactly what it is. It's the M11-3 with the ADATS missiles on top. It does not have the 30mm chain gun, however, but that'd be a very nice top tier spag for the British. I'm not sure how great the Stormer is at shooting down planes. I've never heard anything too great about it, besides the fact that actually, if you know where to hit, can kill a lot of tanks pretty easily. However, I do have one complaint. Sure, it is Canadian, which is like just a cousin and of the British. But also with the South African vehicles, and God else what knows we're going to see in this tree, UK might end up being the Commonwealth and UK tree, which might give a little bit of a identity crisis to the tree. Onto the Japanese, they are only getting one new vehicle, which normally I'd complain about. However, this one vehicle is one that I've been wanting for quite some time, and it's not a premium despite me thinking it would actually be a pretty alright premium. That is the STA3, a competing design to the STA4, or as we now know as the Type 61. It was essentially a Type 61, but with more advanced equipment on it, an autoloader as well as a remote-controlled 50 cal. I think there's a few other things that wouldn't affect in-game. In fact, the remote-controlled 50 cal doesn't even change much in-game. So really, the only difference between this and the Type 61 is that this has an autoloader, a 6-second autoloader. The ammunition, armor values, number of crew, it's all the same. They even actually share the same battle rating, but this one obviously has a higher fire rate, and it actually comes after the Type 61. So the vehicle is clearly 100% better than the Type 61, besides perhaps having a higher profile because of that 50 cal. But how much better is it? Does it still deserve a 6.7 battle rating, or should it go up to 7.0? Well, if you max out your crew on the Type 61, your fire rate is actually not that too different. 7.5 seconds, while the autoloader only having 12 round drum has 6 seconds, so 1.5 seconds faster. Now, of course, if you lose your loader, Type 61 has a longer reload, though most of the times when you get penetrated in Type 61, you're gonna die either then or the shot afterwards. It's not the most survivable tank. So I think this addition is fine, very much needed for Japan. They finally are getting a nice solid 6-7 lineup. If only we could convince Gaijin to lower the Hori production down to 6-7 as well, and that would be fantastic. But otherwise, you can take out the Type 75 SPG or the Type 60 SPRG. China, I think, is the star of the show this time around. However, they only got 3 new things. Some of these things are pretty awesome. Starting off with the V11G, or V11 as it was called in game, isn't anything too special. Low tier attacker aircraft with either one 500-pound bomb or 2 250s, as well as 4 30 cals in the wings and 1 as a defensive turret. During my live stream, the plane was actually called a copy-paste, and despite it being an American aircraft, is actually not currently in game. Now, it should have some relations, I think, to the SB2U. However, it is entirely a whole new model. And I don't mean that only in game. In real life, too, it was a different aircraft. In fact, China didn't only make use of the V11, but also has the V12C and 12D. So I wonder if we could see those come in game. They did say there was other things coming. I'm doubtful if we're going to see every variant of this aircraft, but I think it would be nice. They're pretty cool aircraft. It's finally nice to see China getting its own unique vehicles. Perhaps these were designed by a US company, but I'm pretty sure the most of them were actually built in China or near China. China was kind of being invaded during the war, so a lot of their things were actually built on the border in India and stuff, but they were Chinese factories essentially. Now, they also are finally getting a low tier SPAG, the CCW 353M45, which is a flatbed truck with a 50 cal turret in the back, same as on the M16 in the US tree. In fact, this thing is kind of just a worse M16 as it can't fire directly forward, as the guns would blow up the driver and commander's heads. And this thing also has much less armor, but besides that, things are almost the same. Like, the turret is literally the same, and they share the same battle rating. It's really a fantastic spec for China, though I'm still waiting for that 222. The final Chinese vehicle, which makes me think that they are the star of the show this time around, at least for me, is the ZTZ-99, a very modern Chinese MBT that shares a lot of design ideas with Russian tanks. For example, the carousel to bomb the tank for the autoloader, as well as covered in ERA. But don't go thinking this is some off-brand T-72. This thing is a whole lot more than just that. Now, the main cannon and ammunition is actually the same as the prior tank, the ZTZ-96A, which can get the job done, but it's nothing special. The armor is where this thing really comes in to shine. Of course, you have the usual weak spots, the lower front plate, and the areas around the gun mantlet, as well as the sides. But actually, the turret cheeks and a good chunk of the upper front plate can deflect DM-53. The impressive part is the battle rating was stated only to be 10.0, and I wouldn't be surprised if it retained that battle rating, as its main caliber shell does not hold a whole lot of penetration. Even some 9.7 tanks have higher penetration than it. So if it does stay at 10.0, 9.0 tanks are going to have quite the hard time getting through that tough armor. Makes you wonder though, if China gets the meta tank of the patch, I wonder how many more people are going to be interested in the Chinese tree. I'm also very curious to see how well, whenever we get it, the ZTZ-99A performs. Italy is finally getting what everyone wanted, the F-84. That's a joke. They did get an F-84, but no, Italian helicopters. A tech tree of them, not just a premium that you can no longer purchase. Starting with the AB-502A1, essentially is a Huey armed with 14 snebs and 2 rocket pods of 7 each, which means you have 7 shots. Of starter helicopters, this is a new low, as even the Mi-4 has a lot of rockets you could spam. This one not so much, though if you can get some precise hits, you could get kills. The next one up is actually usable, is the A109 EOA2, coming in at 9.3. While it could have a lot of ordnance, was not exactly a whole lot impressive, as it seemed the max you could carry is 4 tow missiles. But if you're needing an Italian helicopter with ATGMs, this would fill the spots. However, I don't know how well of a job it would do. The final one was looking much better, but still not a top tier heli like the US and Russia have. The A129 CBT was capable of carrying all the modern ordnance, however, just a lower quantity of. At max, you could carry 8 Hellfires, but you would have to sacrifice your ability to carry air-to-air missiles. You did have an option to either carry AIM-9-2s or Mistrals, and also a good number of rockets. Even with those, you could carry some rockets. The vehicle did have flares, though it did not seem to have thermal vision. Well, perhaps that was a dev server bug. The ZTZ-99 also did not have thermal vision or even night vision, despite it historically having so. Overall, the Italian helicopter tree is a little bit disappointing, as there is plenty of other helicopters they could add, but we'll have to wait in the future to see if they actually do that. Finally, though, they also got a new premium ship, the Pula, which is actually just a copy of the Zara class with the same armaments and everything. In fact, I think the skin was even the same. Like the Zara, it was 5.7, so if you need a premium to help you grind out the Italian tree, because they're probably going to get a battleship sometime in the future, this would be the vessel to do it with. Now, you may be thinking Russia got quite a short end of the stick with only a frigate. France got the F-84F and a premium F-84F, an Israeli F-84F. I'm not sure why they got an Israeli version of a US plane. Apparently, perhaps they lend-leased them to Israel instead of the United States, but I don't know. Sure, why not? Sweden is the one that everyone's talking about. You see, they got the new jet, the SK-105G. People were anticipating this, but they were not anticipating the SK-105OE, a premium variant of it. Now, what people were really not anticipating is for the aircraft to get the Swedish equivalent of AIM-9Js at 8.0. That's right, the same battle rating in which the German Seahawk was up tier 2 because it carried 2 AIM-9Bs, you can now find AIM-9Js. Or at least it could up until today. It has now been officially announced the plane is no longer going to be carrying those OP missiles, and only the ones that are equivalent to, I'm pretty sure, AIM-9Bs, which are still going to be pretty good at 8.0. They can be quite useful on the German Seahawk, which has 2 of them, also at 8.0. But the SK-105 has no guns and only will kill 2 planes. What's the big deal? Well, first of all, sure, 1 could kill 2 planes, maybe 1 if you miss one of the missiles. You're probably not going to miss one of the missiles. But what about a team of 4 of them, or an entire team of them? What if it did have gun pods? It can carry gun pods, but the tech tree version cannot carry gun pods and missiles. However, the premium one can carry gun pods and missiles. I'm not entirely sure what's stopping the tech tree one from being able to carry both gun pods and missiles. I don't understand it, but Gaijin just deems it you can't do that. But if you want to have some fighter with gun pods and missiles, just give us some money and there you go. Now, the tech tree one does have some advantage of the premium one. For example, the premium one does not have any bombs, only rockets and no ballistic computer. The tech tree one does have a ballistic computer and a nice pair of bombs. So that one might be a bit better for ground pounding. As for the final vehicle for Sweden, the Asrad R was not on the dev server this time around, though we were able to find the information about it and its missiles. To see this thing in action, as well as the British SAM, we're most likely going to have to wait till the next dev server, whenever that's going to be, probably rather soon. And finally, to close out this video, we have to talk about the new effects that are being added. First off, there's some pretty nice gun effects being added. They look really good on the battleships. You probably saw them throughout this video when I was shooting off guns. Not really necessary, but we got them, so I'm not going to complain. Hopefully this doesn't end up like how Gaijin messes with the sound every patch, so you just don't know what to expect next. But they've also been messing with various tracks now. A certain select of them, not all of them, but they do plan to have all of them done by about a year's time. And starting out, they're just going with some pretty well-known ones like Sherman's, T-34s, T-80 for whatever reason. And they look pretty good. Visually, they are better looking, but they also jiggle now when you're driving around. So yes, they added jiggle physics to War Thunder. But also when you make sharp turns, they'll create sparks. It seems to only happen on the new tracks that don't have rubber pads. So none of the modern stuff, but the older stuff, and you have to do it in concrete, of course. And when you get detracked, they can break apart and roll out. It looks pretty cool. cool, or at least it looked pretty cool on the official dev server stream. For me, I didn't really ever see it a whole lot. Maybe I just missed it or was testing the wrong tracks. What I wonder about is how are they going to downgrade this when the live patch happens? They seem to do this every time when there's new effects. If there's new sound effects, a week later they're lesser known, and it's kind of hard to notice though because you have still some of them. The clouds from the last patch on the dev server, they look really nice. On the live server, they look a little less nice. So what are they going to do to these ones? I'm curious. And the final thing I want to say about the dev server is through Datamines, we have a release date of the patch. Now, once again, Datamine release dates aren't always correct, but they typically are within the ballpark. And the one for this patch is on the 17th of this month. Speaking of which, this video is apparently being made on the 13th, probably come out on the 14th. So it's entirely possible we won't see a second dev server. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, before I end this video, first I'd like to thank my YouTube members, patrons, and as well as Twitch subs. Thank you very much, guys. Your support means a whole lot, especially now and during the holidays. I was thinking about having an idea where you guys could vote on some type of video I would make, maybe vehicle reviews or whatever, like once a month. Nothing too complicated though, but hey, throw out some suggestions there. But anyways, if you have any comment, concerns, or questions about this video, be sure to hit me up in the comments below or on my Discord. If you've liked the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, don't hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. I make Warthog news every Friday. I make random videos throughout the week, and I like to stream on Saturdays. I've also been streaming on twitch.tv/289hunter, so be sure to hit me up there as well. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Happy holidays. In the terms of bonus news and the dev server patch notes, they noted that in the next patch, completing the tutorials will no longer give you 100 golden eagles, but instead will give you unique decals. Not sure how unique they're going to be if everybody gets them, but if you haven't done the tutorials yet, I don't care if they're dumb and annoying, do them now. It's free golden eagles and only takes a few minutes.